All right, so Brian, we were talking about the new wave of ad tech networks here in our first episode of the 4-minute interview. So in our second 4 minutes here, tell us about, again, what you were talking about with Rocket Fuel and expectations and kind of what the investors are looking at today.
Sure. So we had a couple things going on. First is the reversal of the so-called momentum trade. And frankly, there are a lot of investors, the majority of investors, who are unable to spend the time to understand the industries in which they invest. They invest based on what they think the next guy will invest in and what the next guy will pay price-wise.
Yep.
That reverses as it did a month or two ago. And so all these really high-growth companies, the stocks just fell, independent of whether or not there's good value there. Babies were thrown out with bathwater. Now, when it comes to the ad tech companies, I've been arguing for quite some time that these companies were mostly overvalued. You could identify relative quality.
What's the large trend there? Why?
Well, I think that the companies came out of the gate overvalued from a venture perspective, and the expectations were that you could sustain those values in public markets. And the reality is it was, well, unrealistic for the most part. And so as the stocks have fallen well below their offering prices, now the valuations start to look kind of interesting. The risk that I think a lot of people will face is that you've got investors out there who don't really know what they're investing in. This is a hard enough space for people who are in the industry to understand with any clarity. I mean, if people, I would consider you to be one of the more knowledgeable folks in the industry.
I wouldn't say that.
I would. But I would consider, the fact is that anyone who thinks they understand the industry probably doesn't understand it. And that's kind of unusual with respect to public market companies.
And also symbolic of the programmatic industry as well, where everyone assumes robots are taking over, everyone assumes machines are trading, but you're talking about human emotion and humans getting involved with managing each other's
But humans don't even understand it.
Leveraging greed and fear, right?
That's a part of it, but I'm saying that it's so hard to even know it if you're in the middle of it. And I'm suggesting that there are probably 3 or 4 people who really know what's going on or have a good idea of what's going on, and they're the people like the Neil Mohans at Google of the world, or people who are really in the center of it. And that's it. Everyone else is left guessing to some degree.
All right, so speaking of guessing, I mean, it would make sense. I mean, you've got to be one of the guessers, right? I mean, you're writing these very valuable papers from Portland. I mean, yeah, you're here in beautiful Manhattan and taking you away from Luma Partners, big DMS, so sorry, Terry, we'll get you right back there. But, I mean, how do you cover this from a place that, Fred Armisen and others characterize, you're out selling women's books to women and, recycling your clothing on a daily basis. How are you in touch with
Portlandia is not a satire, it's a documentary.
Nice, I didn't know that.
Yes, but no, I mean, the reality is that I've spent enough time in the industry to be able to deconstruct what I see. I know when I read a press release that a lot of it is going to be puffery. I know that companies have to say certain things in certain ways, and it's not necessarily hard to deconstruct it. And hopefully, I'm still very well connected to large numbers of people at private companies where there's a fair degree of flexibility with respect to being able to help understand the sector, and you can apply that to what you think you know about the companies that you're writing about.
Makes sense. All right, so under a minute to go here. We're going to do a little match game here. So your last name, Wieser. You remember the band Wieser?
Ooh,
from about 30 years ago or something like that for us older guys? So they had the song Buddy Holly, and it was one of the most awesome videos ever shot by Spike, where it was a Happy Days spoof, and they did. You remember that scene?
Of course.
All right, so we're gonna see who in ad tech in the programmatic landscape matches up with the Happy Days characters.
Ooh.
So off the top of your head, didn't know he was being asked this. Who is the Richie Cunningham?
Matt Seiler.
Why?
I mean, it strikes me that he's positioning certainly media brands through the lens of trying to drive programmatic forward, and good people certainly, and I think they've certainly put forward a premise that's more, shall we say, the opposite of arbitrage-driven trading, even when it's presumably the case that there is arbitrage activity with all agencies at different parts of the planet. But generally speaking, their philosophy is the opposite of that. So I give it to Matt Seiler.
Fair. All right. Last one then on the analogy. I'm sure everybody at home, find out who's Joni. Find out. Feel free to submit comments down at the bottom here. But all right, who's the Fonz? Who's the Fonz today?
Oh, Martin Sorrell.
Sir Fonz. What makes him the Fonz?
At the end of the day, I think he's really at the center of action.
Fair. And he looks good in the leather jacket.
So.
Too. Yeah, he can pull that off. All right, fantastic. For Brian Wieser of Pivotal Research, thank you very much for all the time. Thank you for watching. Feel free to suggest other subjects down at the bottom or comments of where we did well and where we didn't do so well. Thanks again to Gannett for letting us host our first one here, and looking forward to helping everybody out down in the industry as we go. Yes,
and here's to hoping that Programmatic doesn't jump the shark.
No, very nice, very good. I think we've had plenty of examples of that. I'm sure we could all come up with 10 on our own just from this week. Thanks again.